welcome back after a long but yet kind of fun Christmas break. You're listening to the Sales on Demand show. And boy, it's been a while. It's been a while. But hey, I'm always happy to be back here. This is episode 145, and today I'm going to talk about four spending habits that nobody ever thinks about that are killing your budget, and three things that really don't matter that much. So this is a little bit more of a broad topic here, but it's kind of a fun topic because, I mean, what's the point of making money if you're just spending all of it? So, yeah, I think it's a great topic, and I'm looking forward to talking about it. Well, a lot has happened since my last podcast in December. Here's a really quick summary. So, I went camping. I went to camp. I lost my voice. I found my voice. I went to my in-laws. I visited my parents. I visited my grandfather, and made a pretty good bit of money from Christmas, just in general. So here's a quick recap of just generally how much I, made in sales over Christmas. I didn't hit the 100,000 mark, which, I kind of suspected that I probably wouldn't, but I was aiming for it. Although I did do about $65,000 in sales, so I'm not an unhappy camper. And it looks like the peak shopping day is the 17th of December. That seems to be holding steady from year to year. So every single Christmas I go through, I learn a little bit more about just how things work online and how people's shopping habits are. And that's a lesson that I intend to implement this year. So I do have some big plans for this year. I'm going to be adding 3 or 4 more jewelry products. The jewelry on Amazon is selling really well. It was my best product for the entire Christmas season. Now I'm kind of late to the party to get something in for Valentine's Day. So my next target is Mother's Day. And I think Mother's Day, I'm going to shoot for between 500 and 1,000 units of something related to mothers, motherhood, or even perhaps grandmothers. So there's a lot of different niches that you can target for Mother's Day. It doesn't have to be all about mothers. There's all kinds of people who are kind of mothers, but they don't really call themselves mothers. For example, a wife is a good target for Mother's Day. Fiancés are good targets. Some people have children with their fiancés or their girlfriends or something like that. So there's a lot of different niches that you can hit for Mother's Day and for Valentine's Day as well. So that's my plan this year. Working on some more FBA mugs. I'm going to be pushing a birthday-themed set out there. And then probably after Mother's Day, I may start a Shopify store. But it is a lot of work. So I need to pick the right time. And now is probably not the right time. Although I could start building it now. But I'm not going to start running traffic to the store until probably after Mother's Day. And I'll be targeting Christmas as my sort of big push here. So let's get into the main topic, of course. Now, remember that you can sign up for a very instructive set of videos on how to start your own print-on-demand business by going to salesondemandshow.com/start. That gets you on my email list, and I promise I almost never email through my email list. I probably haven't actually sent out an email for ages. I probably should send out some emails, but yeah, you can get 5 free videos on how to start your e-commerce journey, and that's a really quick and easy way to start selling is opening up an Etsy store. All right, so we're talking about spending. So this I knew I was going to have to talk about this because I started doing my taxes for this year. I started compiling, and I probably should have done this earlier, but, better late than never, I guess. I usually am better at tracking my spending, but now that I'm making a lot more money, I have gotten a little bit lazier about that. And when I say a little bit, I mean significantly lazier about tracking my spending. So, I won't tell you exactly how much money I spent this last year because, quite frankly, it's kind of embarrassing. It was a lot. There was a lot of money. But I mean, generally speaking, everybody is having to spend more money because inflation is gobbling up the value of your money. But it's not just inflation. It's bad habits and little itty bitty things that really, you just don't really notice it and you don't account for it in your budget. So we're going to talk about 4 spending areas, and I was going to do 5, but I couldn't think of a 5th one right off the top of my head. So it's going to be 4 today. And I normally like doing 5. 5 is a nice number, but 4 is okay too. So I actually started thinking about that when I saw a video on Twitter of a lady who was sitting in her car and she was just going on about the price of eggs. And she said, man, between me and my husband, we make $120,000 a year, and yet we're still living paycheck to paycheck. And I was like, okay, I'm going to hear you out. A lot of people were just ragging on this poor lady. And I'm like, all right, well, it's true that she probably has some spending habits that are, that are poor. But the truth is that, I mean, $125,000 for a family it puts you squarely in middle class, especially with the cost of housing. Now, I have talked about housing before and why you should live in a small town. The number one way to spend less money, the number one way is moving out of the city and moving to a small town. I did that. I've been doing that for the last 15 years. We've lived in a small town or near a small town. And honestly, I've never been happier about that. Never once have I ever thought to myself, man, I still wish I lived in the big city with all the crappy traffic. I have never, ever regretted leaving the big city, but seeing the cost of houses and everything in a big city, I am more grateful than ever that we decided to leave. But apart from that, here are 4 things that really kill your spending. So, number 4, subscriptions. Once upon a time, Netflix was born. I think I remember the birth of Netflix because it used to be able to get the DVDs from a machine. So you would rent DVDs from a machine. And I remember doing that. I remember renting a DVD from a vending machine. And the deal was if you rent the DVD and return it, then you pay like $4. If you don't return it, they just charge you for the movie, which is $34. So I mean that was kind of the birth of Netflix, and for a long time Netflix was it. That was all there was. You either had Netflix or you had regular cable, and they still had, there was still Blockbuster Video. You could still rent movies, but mostly people just would subscribe to Netflix. And I think it was, I don't know if it was $8.99, but it was certainly around the $10 mark. And, you just needed one subscription for a family because everybody could just log into Netflix. Well, I don't have to tell you that the glory days of one subscription service have passed us by. So just thinking on all of the subscriptions that I have, I've got Netflix. Netflix is now $21 in Canada, which is a lot. Like, that's a lot of money. But then on top of that, you've got Disney Plus, which is another probably $15. Then I know my wife subscribes to Amazon Prime Video. And then they have Crave TV. And then that's just the video subscriptions. That's just like movies and TV and stuff like that. On top of that, I have Spotify because I do a lot of working out, and I just like listening to music. So I don't buy music anymore. I subscribe to it, which I don't know. On one hand, I'm like, I don't know if I like this, but on the other hand, I kind of do because, I can listen to anything I want. I can make compilations, but it's still, we have a family subscription, so that's $20, at least $20 Canadian. That'd probably be about $15 US. Then, um, and I'm almost too embarrassed to even mention this, but YouTube. Subscribing to YouTube. No, like, I watch enough YouTube. I sometimes will have YouTube videos playing just in the background while I'm working. Just some random thing playing, like a video of somebody camping or something like that. I like watching that kind of thing, but I hate watching ads. So I had been refusing to subscribe to YouTube for a long time, but I finally went and did it, and I'm happy about it. But man, I mean, they got me. They got me with that. It's $15 a month. So I mean, altogether, you're looking at, and that's just the entertainment subscriptions. I have more subscriptions. I subscribe to Audible, so I get an audiobook every month. That's $20. Then I subscribe to um, Strava. So Strava is a fitness tracking app, and you can use it for free, but because I do a lot of fitness, I subscribe to the fitness tracking app. It used to be $10. For the last 12 months, it was $10 a month. And I just got a notification they're raising it. They're raising the price of it, but not by $2 or a dollar or something. They're raising it to $14.95. So I haven't had a chance to sit down and compile all of these here. I haven't even mentioned them all. We have probably a couple more subscriptions that I haven't even thought of. One is, I think, Funimation for anime. There's so many, and that's just the personal subscriptions. Then, as a business owner, I was subscribing to all kinds of other things. So overall, I would say that the subscriptions are probably eating up easily $300 to $400 a month. And monthly, I mean, that may not set, but that's a car payment, right? So if you eliminated even half of those, you would be money ahead. And I can't think of anybody, including myself. I'm counting myself. I could, if I had to, I could go in and eliminate at least half of the subscriptions and not really notice a significant decrease in my standard of living or my entertainment value or whatever. I wouldn't really even notice it. So, I mean, that's money that's bleeding out the door. And especially if you're a business owner, there's subscriptions. Like I subscribed to QuickBooks. I actually canceled that subscription because I realized I'm not even using this. So why am I subscribing to it? So I canceled. That was $40 a month. And then I've got other subscriptions like Merchant Words, Etsy Rank, and other subscriptions that I need for business, but it does bleed money out of your budget. So take a look at your subscriptions, write them all down, and then calculate not just how much you're paying per month, but how much that adds to every single year. And if it's less than $5,000, I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised. If you're a middle-class family, your subscriptions are probably exceeding $5,000 a year. That's a lot of money. Like, that's a used car right there. So, yeah. Now, number 3 is fast food. And this one is it kills my family's budget because there's 4 of us, for one thing. And I'm too picky about what I eat to eat garbage. Not that garbage is necessarily cheaper, right? So when you go out to eat fast food, you can pick McDonald's or you can pick something that's a little bit higher priced. I just straight up refuse to eat anything that is like really fast food like McDonald's or Wendy's or anything like that. I won't even eat Tim Hortons these days, which, that's a staple Canadian diet right there. I will usually go and I'll order something, Mexican food or something like that, because I can see what they're putting in it. I can be like, yeah, put the tomatoes in there. Yeah, put the jalapenos. Plus, Mexican food is just awesome. But like a quesadilla at my favorite Mexican place is like $17, which is it's just way too much money. So fast food overall, I think this year I calculated that we spent around $7,000 or $8,000 on fast food for a family of four. And again, that's a used car. That's probably two used cars. Like I could get a couple of, 2004 Toyota Corollas for about $4,000 each. And they would be really good cars. They would last me for a long time. So fast food is something I took it to my wife and I was like, hey, so we should probably cut down on how much fast food we're eating. Not only it's just not healthy, it's expensive. I mean, food by itself, we're paying somewhere in the neighborhood of like probably $16,000 to $17,000 a year for food. But, we're not saving money by eating fast food. We are definitely spending more on fast food per meal than we would spend on regular food. So I know it's easy to just pick up a meal when you're at work or something like that, or to just go and eat out. But fast food is the fastest way to, I think they call it fast food because it's a fast way to get to spend your money. And if you work a job, like it can be difficult. But when I worked, I was working just as recently as 2 years ago. So I would just make breakfast in the morning and take it with me. And even like I'm going to be leaving in about probably 2 hours. I'm going to be driving to the city to get ready for my flight tomorrow. I'm going to Florida for Tom Woods, a special event for Tom Woods. If you guys know who Tom Woods is, he is the podcaster who got me into the business that I'm in now. I have him to thank for, just basically making me pretty wealthy generally. And so I'm going to be speaking at an event for Tom Woods, but I'm planning to bring my supper with me. I'm not going to be buying supper because that is a waste of money. One of the things that I've been doing that I think is really helpful is I've been doing a lot of cooking and experimenting with new recipes. So I've started making stew, and I've started making soup, and it is so freaking good. I cannot even tell you. So at Christmas, we got a turkey, and the turkey was, I don't know, like 20 pounds or something like that. It was a big turkey, not a huge turkey, not like the size of a moose or anything, but it was pretty big. And the meat on it, that was tasty. But what was really the best part of the turkey was the soup that we made out of it later. So I took I have a big roasting pan, like a really big roasting pan. So I just filled it with water, and I just let that turkey simmer on the stove, just kind of a low rolling boil for almost 12 hours. And it just leached all of the soupy gelatin goodness out of these turkey bones, and then I chucked the turkey bones out. And then I put a little bit of meat into the turkey soup, but it gave me probably an ice cream pail and a half of delicious turkey broth, and I started making stew out of this turkey broth, and it was so good. I have lots of stew meat because we buy a half a cow every year, and we just put it in the freezer. And of course, when you buy half a cow, you're not getting 75 steaks. You're getting hamburger, you're getting stew meat, you're getting liver, you're getting roast, because they're giving you literally half the cow. So whatever cuts are on half the cow, you get half a cow's worth of those cuts. So you got to learn how to cook these cuts. So you get the short ribs, you've got, the chuck roast and everything. So I started making stew because we got a whole bunch of stew meat. And it was pretty cheap to buy all this meat. And, I've never really been into making stew, but I made some stew that was so good. I would eat it for breakfast, lunch, and supper. That's how good it was. I was making and eating stew like all day long, and I was not sick of it. And now it's gone, and I don't know what to do because I miss having my stew. So I'm gonna have to put some more stew meat in the fridge, thaw it out for my next batch of stew. So all in all, fast food is really poisonous to your budget. Cut down on fast food and be healthier by learning how to cook. Right? Cooking is easy and it's cheaper. It is much cheaper and easier, and it's more fun to cook your own food than it is to go out for food. If you're going to go, out for fast food, give yourself a budget. So you can be like, okay, I'm giving myself $120 this month for fast food. And that way you can track how much you're actually eating out. And the goal is to have money left over at the end of the month. Number 2 on the list of 4 spending habits that are killing your budget, Amazon. Amazon is killing your budget. It is just so freaking easy to just order crap from Amazon. And you know what? I love Amazon. I do. I really freaking love Amazon because I've made a lot of money from Amazon. But when I compiled their budget this year, I was like, oh my gosh, we have spent so much money on Amazon. And it's just little things like, oh, I need, and it's one thing if you're just buying kids' clothes on Amazon. But if you're going to spend money on Amazon, you need to include it in a budget because, otherwise it just gets lumped all together as Amazon spending. And that Amazon Prime is just, I can see why that company is successful because it's just so easy to just buy stuff from Amazon. It's like, oh, it's only $12. It's only $15. Oh, I really need these cat coasters. It's just little things like that. They add up. Over the year, I won't even tell you the exact number, but it's over $5,000 that we spent on Amazon. It's significantly more than $5,000, which I was not surprised. I was not surprised to find that out. So that was a big deal. And of course, number 1 is, oh, that looks nice. I just put, oh, that looks nice. That is number 1, is, oh, that looks nice. And it's impulse buying. Impulse buying kills your budget. Why? Because it's not planned. Now, I have a friend, and this is a good friend of mine, and I'm not going to say his name or anything, but he struggles with 2 things. Number 1 is that he likes to spend money. Now, everybody likes spending money. That's not a big surprise. We're all kind of in that boat. But number 2 is that he's on a fixed income. No, he's on a very fixed income. It's very hard for him to work. He just gets a certain amount of money every month, and he has to make that work. So one problem really gets in the way of the other problem because he is a compulsive spender, and he has, he's a good friend, and he knows about this. Like, he knows that this is a problem for him. So him and I have talked about it, and he said, hey, listen, do you have any ideas how I can just, get, to keep my budget under control? I can't seem to stop spending. And I said, okay, here's something. When you want to spend money, if you want to buy something that isn't planned out, there has to be 24 hours between when you see it and when you buy it. So this is called delayed gratification. And oftentimes Like, if you see something and you're like, man, that jacket looks really cool, I think I'd like to buy it. Wait. Just stop, wait, and say, okay, if I still want that jacket in 24 hours, I'll come back and buy it, as long as I have money for it. Like, if you have the budget for it, you'll come back and buy it in 24 hours. And 24 hours later, you might find out that I don't really need that jacket, so you don't buy it. So impulse purchases can have a huge impact on your budget. And he's actually messaged me and said, "Hey, listen, man, what do you think about me buying this jacket?" I'm using jacket as an example, and I was like, "Cool, man." I was like, "Is it in your budget?" And he was like, good point. It's not." So he didn't buy it, and I was proud of him for that. Like, that's not an easy thing to do, to put yourself out there and be accountable to someone else. So I was pretty proud of him for, like, just being accountable to somebody else. And I think that's really the key, is you need someone to be accountable to who knows your budget and can help sort of smack your hand a little bit if you're getting out of control. So, number one, oh, that looks nice. I'm going to buy that tomorrow if I still need it tomorrow. That's a great way to cut down on those impulse purchases. Okay, so here are 3 things that everybody thinks are really important to save money on, but they're not actually anywhere near as important as the 4 things that I just mentioned to you. So the number 1 thing is heat or cooling for your house. So we live in a cold climate where we don't have central air conditioning. We have portable air conditioners that we can just haul in. They're really noisy and annoying, but it'll cool down one room. So we don't really have to cool our house, but we do heat the house. And honestly, heat is a very tiny part of my budget. Very tiny part. And I allow, like, my daughter will go and turn up the heat to 74 degrees. And it gets pretty hot in my office because I got a vent that's right underneath my desk, and it just blasts on my leg. So sometimes I'll go and turn it down because I'm boiling. But if I'm cold, I turn up the heat. I am not trying to save money on heat because it's really not that big of a deal. The cost of natural gas in Canada is pretty low. Now, this can change if you live in an area where it costs a lot of money to heat your house. Like, if you're paying more than $500 a month for heating or cooling, yeah, you're in the this may not apply to you. You probably should look at ways to reduce your heat costs. But I mean, anything, our bill's probably about $250, and that's this the middle of winter, and we have an entire house. So I don't really worry about the temperature in my house. I do turn the heat down at night, but only because I like sleeping in cool temperatures. I don't like when it's hot. I sleep better in the cold. If my wife was cold, I would turn up the heat, and I wouldn't squabble even a bit about that, because it's not really that big of a deal. We're not spending that much money on it. Number 2 is electricity. Now, I know electricity, depending on where you live, may be used to heat your house. So again, this may not always apply to everybody, but leaving one light bulb on is not a big deal, especially with the LED bulbs that we've got now. Don't fret about leaving a couple light bulbs on, and don't obsess over that to the exclusion of everything else on the list here. Honestly, electricity is still pretty cheap. Even where I live, I'm in a rural area, so it's a little bit more expensive to get electricity just because it has to travel further. But it's really not that bad. I think our electric cost is maybe $120 a month. And that's in the middle of winter when we're running, furnaces and everything like that all at the same time. And especially lights. Like, turning off your lights is not saving you a lot of money. It's just not. Now, it might burn out a lot of light bulbs, but even light bulbs are pretty cheap. So, electricity, yeah, not a big deal. It's not nearly as important as you think. And then number 3 is where you buy fuel. So, I know that there are people out there who they will travel, 7 miles out of their way to buy gas at a place just because it's 5 cents cheaper. Or, I guess if it's per gallon, 20 cents cheaper. That's not saving you any money. It's just costing you time. So, where you buy fuel is not that big of a deal. I've caught myself like looking at the cost difference between a gas station that I'm at and a gas station that is way out of my way, and I'm like, "Oh, I want to buy gas at this place cuz it's cheaper there." And then I'm like, "Oh, you know what? That's okay. I'm just gonna buy fuel here because the time is more important to me than the dollar that I'll save, on filling my gas tank." Um, the one difference is that if you're traveling from state to state or province to province, if you can save money by fueling up in the cheaper province, that can help quite a bit. So we were traveling to my wife's family in BC, and the gas there was easily 50 cents more per liter than it was in Alberta. So I did everything I could to avoid putting any gas in my tank in British Columbia. Then when we got back to Alberta, I filled up the gas tank, and I'm like, okay, probably saved, I don't know, $10, but it was just the principle of it. It's not a lot of money, but the principle is I'm not paying, more money if I don't have to. So I'm not saying don't save money by focusing on these things. I'm just saying that they're not nearly as important, and the savings are actually quite minuscule compared to the first 4 things that I mentioned. All right, well, that is it for this particular podcast. Next week, I'm going to be talking about 3 ways to start selling print on demand in order of difficulty and profitability. So if you want to hear 3 different ways that you can start your own online business selling print on demand, I'm going to be talking about that next week. So join me then, and we'll see you later. Cheers.